Hi everybody, this is Matteo De Guidi here from the Italian and Space and Astronautica Association, a non-profit organization whose aim is to spread and popularize astronautic to the Italian public. Today we are having an interview with Professor Moriba Jah, an astrodynamicist and a professor at the University of Austin, Texas, United States of America, talking about space sustainability. I had the pleasure to meet Professor Moriba Jah quite months ago during a speech he had at the University of Padova, where he talked about space sustainability. I was really amazed and really thrilled to join that speech, and I am really thrilled today to have this interview with him. So yeah, if you have anything you can add, or otherwise we can start.
I'm good. I don't have anything. Let's get started.
Yeah, perfect. So my first question is regarding the definition of space sustainability. What do you really think is space sustainability, and how can we reach this goal?
Yeah, so sustainability in and of itself for me is really focused on humanity's ability to utilize a resource in perpetuity freely in an unhindered way and peacefully. And so therefore, space sustainability is humanity's ability to utilize space as a resource in perpetuity in a free, unhindered, and peaceful way. And that's already been compromised for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the preponderance of orbital debris, which is a burden to operational satellites which have to maneuver around these things to avoid collisions.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched yesterday's Flight 7 of Starship.
I did.
Yeah, what do you think about that 10 Starlink satellites that should have been deployed? Do you consider them as orbital debris, or even they were suborbital, they couldn't cause any problem?
I mean, it was definitely space debris for sure. And because this rocket blew up, that was also a lot of debris.
Yeah. It was quite fantastic anyway. And do we have any actual way to reduce these orbital debris in space? I mean, technologies, tracking stations. I don't know if you're aware of any company that is trying to do so.
Yeah, so I mean, there's mainly two aspects to the debris problem. One of them is prevention, and the other one is the cleaning. For the prevention piece, the thing that I try to promote is the idea of a circular space economy. Right now, we have a linear space economy where everything that we launch is a single-use space system, meaning once satellites stop working, they become trash. That's their fate and their destiny. A circular space economy would prioritize the prevention of pollution by developing, designing, launching, and operating reusable and recyclable space systems and satellites. So we don't have any of that yet. We have reusable rockets, which is good, with SpaceX, but we don't have reusable or recyclable satellites, and we need that. So that would help with the prevention. To clean up what's already there, that's very difficult. And much like our oceans will never be completely clean again, space will not be like it was in 1956. So we can clean some things, but many of the debris on orbit are things that will only be able to find ways to try to live with their presence.
Thank you. And who do you think should pay for these cleaning capabilities? I mean, there are satellites from agencies, from governments, but also from privates. So who do you think should pay for this? Is it like a 50-50, all on the private company or all on the nation's side?
Well, so my question to you is, who pays to clean the roads in Italy? Who pays to clean the garbage?
It's me. We as the population with our taxes.
Right. And so to me, that there has to be something like that. Like our utilization of space means that there needs to be funding that is put aside, for the benefit of cleaning up space. Certainly, it's a government responsibility for sure. And governments need to put in place a way for people to get compensated for cleaning up the space garbage.
Okay, thank you. It's really an interesting point of view. And so you said there are satellites in space, but there are some satellites we cannot reach, like the one in geostationary orbit. How can we achieve a circular economy in that region of space? I mean, it's pretty far away, pretty expensive to go there. Do you think the graveyard orbit is a right solution, or do we have to repurpose satellites also there?
Yeah, so right now, the way that we treat garbage on the planet, including plastics, is that, they find their ways into landfills. And that's not good. Out of all of the global plastic, only 9% get recycled globally. Everything else finds its way into oceans, into dumps or landfills, which is quite unfortunate. So with the geo graveyard orbit, yeah, the graveyard orbit's not a great idea, because that's the equivalent of a landfill on orbit, except that eventually the junk in the graveyard can come into the geo, orbit regime. So what we really need is we need this idea of a circular economy at geo, where the things that we launch are things that can be reused or recycled on orbit. That would be the best thing possible.
Thank you. I would like to go back to what you said before, that we should pay, like citizens should pay for cleaning space. But space is not like roads. I mean, roads in Italy are in Italy, as I said, but space is for everybody. So can we achieve, do you think we will ever achieve, like not today, not tomorrow, not in 50 years, but do we will ever achieve to have a supranational, overnational entity that...
Yeah, so let me say this, right? One thing that could happen is the companies that want to make money from operating in space, part of the fees to be able to launch and operate, part of those fees could go towards disposal. When their thing is at the end of the life, what's the right way to dispose these things and that sort of stuff. And then, governments, the ones that license those operations, could be fully responsible for the disposal and say, yeah, the things that I'm authorizing to launch from my country and these sorts of things, it's my responsibility, on behalf of the government to clean that up. And so the people that want to launch with me, they pay, out of all the money that they're going to give me for the licensing, this much is going to go into an account that will support cleanup of, the objects that I'm responsible for. Like that could be something that countries could do. And in order for it to really work well, you'd want for everybody to do it, right? But you can't force people to do these things. So at least, some countries could show leadership by implementing these sorts of things.
So you think will be more something more that a nation decides to do cleaning, and then all the others will see that this is beneficial also to their economy, to their skies, and so
Absolutely.
they will.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. So yeah, I would like to move from this topic a little bit, and I know you are a professor at a university, and I think you know that many universities right now are building their own satellites. They are really small, they are microsatellites, they are small satellites, and it is quite cheap to reach orbit. I know, I mean, with the transporters program from SpaceX, you can reach orbit like every 3 or 4 months with a reasonable price also for a university. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about this? I mean, on one side, we can really help students and engineers to build satellites and operate them. but on the other side, they are really small and hard to track. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, so the way that I feel about it is that I think that the cheap access to space is good. Cheap access is good, but launching cheap satellites isn't. So, and what I mean by cheap satellite is disposable satellites. So the same way that we want to minimize creating single-use plastics on the Earth, we want to minimize creating single-use satellites. So I think that cheap access is good, but when it comes to the satellites, we need to shift to launching and operating reusable and recyclable satellites.
Okay. Because I feel that it is really important on one side to build expertise, because otherwise we will just stick with big satellites that maybe are just for big companies. But on the other side, we are forgetting in a way our students and professors and engineers. So you don't see as a future scenario having a Kessler syndrome in Earth orbit?
Well, the thing is, I don't really believe in Kessler syndrome, because Kessler syndrome means that, or the way it's been interpreted is, things colliding forever, and then space becomes unusable forever. So forever is a long time. What I see in Mother Nature is when humans stop doing stupid things, Mother Nature always seeks equilibrium. But I do believe that the carrying capacity for an orbital highway can become saturated, and certain orbits becoming unusable for extremely long periods of time. So I think that is already starting to happen.
When I had the pleasure to attend your speech, you talked about this orbital highway. Can you clarify a little bit for our listeners? What do you really mean with it?
Yeah, so the thing is, we're pretty smart in terms of how to make use of gravity and that sort of thing. And as such, there are specific places where we put satellites, depending on what mission we want them to achieve. We use gravity to assist us as much as possible. If we have to fight gravity to try to a space mission, then we're going to lose, because gravity is always going to win, because we'll never have enough propellant to fight gravity. So yeah, these are specific places in the curvature of space-time where we can put satellites. And because they're very specific places, it means that we're putting more and more things in those places to orbit. And so these highways or orbital trajectories are becoming more and more congested.
Thank you. You showed during that speech a really useful and really interesting graphic, and that was one of the key points, for me at least, of that speech. You talk about Mother Nature and how the equilibrium is always established between Mother Nature and humanity and space. And I have a question I would have liked to ask you during that speech, but I couldn't. With the disposal of the ISS, the International Space Station, in the coming years, how do you feel about? I mean, it's a really important piece of hardware and history of humanity up in their space, but at the same time, we know we can't keep it there forever. How do you feel? Do we? Is
so
it
here's
okay
the
to
thing.
dispose it?
Here's what I think. I think that the governments that operate the space station, they should just auction it, and it should be privatized. Like, we should see which companies are willing to purchase the space station and utilize it for a variety of things, including tourism or whatever. So let private industry figure out what to do with the space station instead of bringing it back.
Okay. It was really interesting because you talk about Mother Nature and how we pollute oceans. So disposing the ISS in our ocean, I saw it is something like a problem. So I was really curious.
That's why I think don't do it.
So do you think it's the only way, if we cannot in the coming years achieve a circular economy, what should we do? I mean, should we keep disposing satellites, burning them in atmosphere?
That's not so good either, because Just like when you incinerate plastic, it pollutes the air. When you incinerate satellites, it pollutes the atmosphere because of the materials that they're made out of. So incineration is not necessarily a great mechanism for disposal.
Thank you very much. Last question.
Yeah.
It's like really detached from what we talked. I was really curious, and if you could tell to our listeners your relation with space, how it started, and because I find it really romantic. So, thank you.
Yeah. So basically, I got really involved in space ever since I was, in military school. I grew up in Venezuela, so I was in a military boarding school for high school. And one of the things that I had to experience, it was a punishment, was having to stand out in patio from 9 o'clock at night to 5 in the morning, exposed to the sky, and I could see, the planets and stars kind of go across, and I felt connected to the sky, and it was a way for me to become detached from whatever traumatic experiences that I was having at the moment. But after graduating from high school, I returned to the United States and I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. And my job was to secure and guard nuclear missiles in Montana. And it was the first time in my life that I was exposed to a very dark sky. And I didn't realize how populated the sky was with galaxies and all these things. Everywhere I looked, there was something to see. It wasn't empty space. And every once in a while, I could see dots of light going across the sky that were not planes, they weren't meteors, they were satellites reflecting sunlight. And that really made me more curious. And that's the reason why I decided to study astrodynamics, which is the science that studies about motion in space.
Thank you. It's really inspiring, and I hope it inspires our listeners too. And yeah, with that, I think we can conclude. I would like to thank Professor Moriba Jah again for your time and for your invaluable insights and points of view. Thank you.
Grazie mille, baci e abbracci.
Thank you. It was really good Italian.
All right. Ciao.
Ciao.